Parents of Reddit, what mistake did you make raising your child that you can see manifest in them as an adult? My older boy is 12 and I caught him yelling at his younger sibling using the exact same tone and mannerisms I use when I'm angry. He needs to learn how to let go of anger, and I don't know how to teach him that because I don't know myself. They have professionals for that. No, seriously. Just like we don't expect people to set broken bones and instead tell them to go to the doctor, it's completely reasonable to go talk to a therapist about stuff like severe anger issues. I didn't let her fail enough. She's a very anxious adult. She was a super anxious child, and I felt terrible anytime something went really wrong for her. So I tried to teach her strategies to avoid having things go wrong. Now as an adult, there are times when no amount of strategy, backup plan, double checking etc will prevent something from going wrong, and she just goes to pieces very much the way she did when she was 3. Not exactly the same way, because she's slowly and painfully learning that failure is not the end of the world, and that you can pick yourself up, dust yourself off and start over. But I have a feeling that lesson would be easier and less painful to learn at 3 than in your 20s. Such an important lesson. I'm an anxious person too and eventually learned this one firsthand over and over in my early 20s. It might be part of just growing up. My kid isn't an adult yet, but he is a teenager. When he was young, we lived with my mom and then later, with my grandma. I was working full time and taking online classes from our local college. I tried to wait until he was asleep to do my schoolwork, but sometimes I had too much and had to start after dinner. He would be absolutely fine, just playing near me while I studied or did homework, and I would always answer him or give him a cuddle when he needed it. However, my mom and grandma couldn't handle this apparent lack of attention and would take him in the other room and dote on him. That sounds nice, and I think they had good intentions, but the result was that it took me years after finally moving out on my own to teach him to play on his own again without constant attention. At least you tried, and recognize it as a problem. My cousin's kids expect to be entertained or they'll start having screaming fits and their parents and grandparents, my aunt and uncle, dote on them. They're 10 and 7. I built my kids' PCs, upgraded them, cleaned the dust, set up their Xboxes and PlayStation, fixed the bikes and did everything that I could do for them. I should have showed them how to do it instead, taught them, not left them floundering at college when their crap inevitably breaks down and they cannot fix it. Not their fault, it's on me. Don't be a quitter, is what we said to our first child. He joined soccer, got bored, but we made him finish the season. He joined basketball, didn't like it, but we fought with him every week to go because we are good parents and didn't want to raise a quitter. He joined band, etc. After a few years he refused to join anything because we'd make him go, so he just didn't do any extra activity. We figured it out for our other 2 kids. They couldn't just quit, but had to think it through and try one more game or practice. Turns out they quit very few things, but never regretted it. Today our kids are adults and our oldest refuses to listen to our suggestions, often to his detriment, while the others will listen but do what they wanted to do but at least take our advice under consideration. My mom called me the experimental child because of this. My 2 younger siblings have better life skills than I do. We're in our 30s and 20s. Not encouraging him enough to put himself out there and make friends. In high school I had friends but was somewhat antisocial, and my mom would force me out of the house. I hated it at the time, but it probably ended up being for the best. Without a doubt, I did not let them fail enough. There are so many lessons to learn from falling and having to pick yourself up, from having to suffer the consequences and celebrate the victories of your decisions. I am watching my son struggle as a man, while watching him do exactly the same thing with his daughter. He never ever lets her fail, because he never wants to see her hurt. I totally get it. I should have let them fail. Reading. My daughter's is almost 8 and she is way behind on reading in school. She's in the slow reader group, and every time there is homework where she has to read anything with any degree of difficulty she completely shuts down and is almost impossible to deal with. Take the time and read a book or 2 to your kids as much as possible. My son was always slow to complete tasks, eating dinner, chores, So I would put on a timer. Now he goes crazy whenever there is a timer and totally shuts down. Like if he plays a game and a timer comes on, he just stops playing. Totally gave him an anxiety problem. Lucky for me he is still young, so I am trying to fix it. Still feel junky about it though. My wife's little brother cannot be away from a phone or iPad for more than 5 minutes without going into withdrawal. I'm not talking about winning. I mean full on shaking and not knowing what to do. His boredom goes from captivated to anxiety unless he's killing brain cells watching the stupidest let's play on the internet. His mom would put Netflix on for him while they went on trips. The grocery store is a solid 20 minutes from their house. Everything is 20 minutes from their house. So at home or in the car he had a screen in his face from the time he was able to hold a tablet. He never charges his own tablet, so he'll just go up to anyone in the house, grab their phone and start watching stuff without asking. It's become a real problem because now they can't get him to do anything else. This is actually a mistake that my parents made that I refuse to pass on to my kids. They never apologized to me, not even once, and sometimes it was obvious that they were dead but wrong. When I screw something up for my kids, I make sure I sit them down and say, I'm sorry I screwed that up. Do you know what I get for it? Respect. My kids always tell me that they forgive me, and that it is okay. I try my best not to frick things up for them, but when I do, I feel that they deserve a heartfelt apology. I am not a parent, but I watch my brother raise his 3 sons and I think the biggest mistake he makes is forcing all 3 to do the exact same thing. If one plays baseball, they all play baseball. If one quits karate, they all quit karate. It drives me insane because he has one son, my favorite, who is sensitive and intelligent, but whose interests are always eclipsed by those of his brothers. He wants to learn French and take dance classes, but his brothers want to play football and pressure him until he says he does too. I can see that he is miserable and I try to get my brother to let him explore different activities, but he ignores me. The funny thing is that this is exactly how my dad raised us boys. I see a lot of myself in my nephew and it frustrates me to know that he is going through the exact same thing I went through. This is why aunts and uncles are so important. They can sympathize in ways parents are too clouded to see. This is an easy one. I tried too hard to shield my children from heartache and rough times because I grew up in a neglecting and abusive home. Bad things happen. Life can be unfair. Heartbreak can't be avoided and sometimes we fail. It hurts. Dang it, I know, but do not shield your children too much. They need to work on healthy coping skills. They need to learn how to handle heartache and failure and people being total shoots, and they need to know how to cope when they are the ones being total shoots to someone. Pain, tears, railing against fate. It all needs to happen. My sons, as adults, were easily rocked by bad times and had to learn how to cope better because I'd sheltered them too much from pain that life to offer. Yeah, kiddo, I know falling on your face hurts. It's supposed to hurt, but what can you do to prevent yourself from falling down that hole in the sidewalk again? Take another route. Made him extremely nervous about getting yelled at when speaking to us. So now he has a major fear of confrontation. My friend's kid is 4. She was their first child and from day one was princess name. The mother is real girly but is also very grounded, so combine that with a baby girl and the grounded part of her went out the window. Everything was pink, pretty, and princess. Now that she is 4 and has a baby brother, already her parents are seeing the error of their ways. She is demanding, a ham, a diva, and gets very bitchy if you don't pay her 100% attention. I wonder what this will be like when she is in her teens. Never had much money when mine were growing up, and what money I did have I was irresponsible with. But I didn't want my sons to worry, so they never knew when I was poor and I bought them about what they wanted. I wish now I had been more open and said I can't afford it, because now my 19-year-old has the same bad habits that I do. No idea what stuff costs. Overdraft fees because he doesn't pay attention. Impulse buying. I told him this week that somehow we were going to learn budgeting together this year, hoping Dave Ramsey has a starter course or a book. My biggest mistake was not taking better care of myself. I have been a Sam for 20 years, and I dedicated my life to my kids. I always put them first, and as a result, they see me as a second-class citizen. Yes, I spoiled them, another regret, and I should have demanded more respect. I also wish I had given them more opportunities to learn about gratitude. They are still young. Teens, one who just turned 20. I know they love me, but they are spoiled and selfish. I raised a niece and a nephew, and by far the biggest mistake I made was spending too much time reaching for the stern solution, swat on the butt, when the firm solution, kid, come here, would have served them better over a lifetime. The net effect for them as adults is an inability to take anyone but the most serious and threatening authority figure seriously. My advice to current or soon-to-be parents would be to appreciate that if it takes 3 come here moments to avoid using physical punishment, it's likely going to be worth it for the kid in the long run. There's value in making them do things. The most important skill you have as an adult is the ability to suck it up, but how you make them do things matters a lot. On balance, they both grew up to be genuinely good human beings. Every now and then, though, they'll be telling me about something from work, and I'll cringe a bit because I know what the source of the problem is. The boy, especially, had a stretch in his late teens where he really gave too much credibility to adults with an authoritarian streak and not enough to those who wielded soft power. It took him a few years to figure out that the soft power person who could cut off your paycheck was just as dangerous. Lousy work ethic. They are all had ADHD and various other special needs. So when they were growing up they had chores, but there didn't seem to be any pressure to do them on time. You did them when mom absolutely lost her crap, and not until. So I felt like an egg. And now they are all adults and they still don't do their chores. They don't clean anything. Their rooms are a mess. They don't help with dinner. They don't do anything around the house, except leave a trail for me to clean up wherever they go. If I go completely bonkers and yell at them, then they will help. Once. Then they forget again. I am so tired to being the resident housekeeper, but the only option seems to be being a complete nag, which frankly I'm bloody tired of after 20 years. The most hilarious thing about this thread are all the grown adults commenting on how their parents messed them up. As a parent, I appreciate the parents who are speaking up about what they see. My parents were the hands-off type. They believe that we should explore our worlds by ourselves. We had no regulations. We did whatever we want. It was nice growing up. In fact, the kids in our neighborhood were jealous. Their parents, however, hated it. They thought we were corrupting their kids, and they were probably right. As an adult, I have absolutely no discipline when it comes to doing work during my free time. I would miss every deadline and forget about any responsibility. It's frustrating. There were times when I told myself, it's time to change, but I would fall back in my indolence way in about a week or two. I have no concept of cleanliness. I have a hard time keeping my apartment clean. I would try but it would revert back to its former condition in a day or two. The lack of my parents' affection drove me to be needy. I am still struggling with relationships. As of now, all of my relationships had ended horribly. I pee away some very good women. I'm 17, and my parents are like this. They're lovely people, and this method has been wonderful for teaching me some things, but I also have problems with self-discipline and neediness. I'm worried I'll never be able to break the cycle. I grew up super anxious, tense and often got depressed, and I have always suspected it was tied to an innate fear of nothing in particular. I'm still that way at 56 years old. Most of the people on my mother's side of the family are that way. They often express fret and worry. They are quick to freak out over things that most people think are minor. When I raised my daughters, if anything went wrong or there was a risk of a problem occurring, I made a point to tell my girls that we could handle whatever happens. I told them that if you're paying attention and learning from your experiences, you could deal with almost anything. My girls are now 23 and 19 and both appear to have avoided the bugaboo that has made it very hard for me to relax and enjoy life. They both seem happy and at ease. I'm terribly proud of them and they're my favorite people to be with, partly because they both have a positive outlook. You should be proud of you. You helped break the cycle for them. Well done. I made sure they were well provided for, and I may have over provided for the sake of them not having to be without. Now, we have an entitled young adult that takes no responsibility for her actions and won't move out. BC, it's too hard out there. Make it harder at home. I remember growing up, my mom used to talk a lot about how wiggly babies are when you're changing them. How it only takes a second and they'll just flop right off the table if you're not careful. My mom also used to know a strange amount of information about the composition of the skull of an infant. How it's actually several small plates and relatively soft, and how the plates would slowly grow together and fuse into a solid piece as the child grew. She'd start rambling about it at the weirdest times, usually after I'd done something unmistakably dumb. When I was in my late teens I shaved my head, and the hairstylist gasped at the massive dent in the back of my head. That was my first clue that not all skulls were shaped the same as mine. There is no such thing as a perfect parent. There are no perfect people. Every parent will screw up their child in some way. So before becoming a parent, think about the ramifications of what that means. You will screw up a child adult in small ways, large ways, or both, and you will bring a human into existence without their consent. You will raise them and hopefully they are self-sufficient, mostly happy, and will manage a healthy relationship with you and with others. But that may not come to pass. Even if all of these come to pass, you will make mistakes of varying degrees that will imprint on your kid forever. It makes parenthood sound terrifying, but you know what? It should be. Maybe they won't be a drug addict, but maybe they will. Perhaps they will seem well adjusted, but maybe they will be hiding cuts under their clothing or flinch every time someone raises their voice. You will make them cry. You will give them personality quirks or aversions. You will emotionally hurt them, often, even if it's developmentally necessary. You will question your methods by basing them on your own experiences. You will alter your methods based on popular social opinion. Even if you have a great relationship with your kid, 25 plus years down the road your successful, well-mannered adult offspring might be sitting in therapy, working around the one or many times you let them down. Maybe it was the one time you were high-strung from an event in your day, and when your kid needed 5 minutes of your time to tell you something important you yelled at them and sent them to their room. Maybe you thought it was about something silly, but it could have been about someone hurting them behind closed doors. In that moment they learned they couldn't go to you. It was hard enough to go to you, but now they were shut down, and it was the push that will sever their one connection to stopping the abuse that was happening to them. You will have forgotten that moment, but they never will. Being a parent is exhausting in the moments you don't remember. When you were your least supportive or thoughtful, could be moments your kid carries forever. That's scary, but everything isn't black and terrible either. Whatever mistake was made or will be made, when your child needs an ear or an apology, give it. Give both these things freely. At the end of the day, that's often the only thing a kid adult needs more than a parent trying to be perfect. It doesn't matter how many years have passed, but both are things without expiration dates and are always welcome, even when not acknowledged. Admit to being human. Apologize for the times you could not be your best, but establish a means for your kid to come to you for support when they need it. That's the best thing a parent can do for a kid's emotional health. You don't have to be superhuman, just be human and willing to apologize and listen. You have been visited by the Safety Doggo. Subscribe and you will be safe from all danger for the next 24 hours. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video, or don't. Either way, have a great day, you magnificent people.